Lesson 3: Federal Reserve System. The Federal Reserve System is the United States' principal banking authority. It serves as the United States' fiscal agent, is the custodian of commercial banks' reserve accounts, offers loans to commercial banks, and manages the supply of money, including coins, in collaboration with the United States Mint. The Federal Reserve Act, signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson on December 23, 1913, established the institution. It is made up of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the 12 Federal Reserve Banks, the Federal Open Market Committee, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This was created by the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act in 2010. The CFPB assumed some functions of the former Consumer Advisory Council, which existed from 1976 to 2011. There are hundreds of banks that are members. The Federal Reserve System's 7-member Board of Governors decides the reserve requirements of member banks within statutory limitations, examines and determines the discount rates established by the 12 Federal Reserve Banks, and analyzes the Reserve Bank's budgets. The President of the United States appoints the chairman of the Board of Governors for a 4-year term. A Federal Reserve Bank is a privately held organization formed to serve the public interest under the Federal Reserve Act. It is administered by a board of 9 directors, 6 of whom are elected by member banks, and 3 of whom are chosen by the Federal Reserve System's Board of Governors: Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas, Kansas City, Missouri, Minneapolis, Minnesota, New York City, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia, St. Louis, Missouri, and San Francisco are among the 12 Federal Reserve Banks. The 12-member Federal Open Market Committee, comprised of the Board of Governors' 7 members, the President of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and 4 members elected by the Federal Reserve Banks, is responsible for setting Federal Reserve Bank policy to encourage the long-term objectives of price stability, i.e., controlling inflation through interest rate adjustments, and maximum sustainable employment. The Federal Advisory Council, which serves only as an advisory body, is made up of 1 delegate from each of the 12 Federal Reserve districts. Did you know that the Federal Reserve has 3 primary goals: to maintain low inflation, low unemployment, and healthy economic growth? There are 2 basic policy tools employed by the Federal Reserve. If unemployment and slow economic growth occurred due to a recession, it lowers interest rates and resorted to quantitative easing, from which banks' resources are filled with money. Meanwhile, when inflation has overly risen, the Fed will utilize its sell or sink policy tools. Econ Life, Schwartz E., December 31, 2018.